Top 5 SEC observations. And before we get to that, let's talk about our good friends at Unite Private Networks. Go to uniteprivatenetworks.com. Our internet is absolutely fantastic. Even has a UPC backup. So when we had a power outage last week, the internet stayed connected. That was an unbelievable thing that happened to us. We had that backup there. Now, we probably need to get that for everything in this room. But we had a power outage, a week or two ago that lasted maybe 6 seconds, like a little brownout, and we came right back on and we're connected to our stream because of Unite Private Networks. They're unbelievable. Check out uniteprivatenetworks.com. So here's top 5 SEC observations. Number 5, Kentucky's a team to watch, in my opinion. I don't know what's going to happen this week against Georgia. It probably doesn't bode well for Kentucky that A, they're playing this game in Athens, and B, Georgia got a scare put into them last week by a very, I'll call them mediocre at best Auburn team right now as Hugh Freeze tries to rebuild that program. But they make big plays. They make really big plays. Ray Davis, the running back, really a fun player to watch. Devin Leary at quarterback hasn't been quite as good as I thought he would be in Liam Cohen's offense yet, but I do think he's a really solid player. Maybe just a little bit of a, if Will Levis is an A- quarterback, then I think that you've got Devin Leary at a B+, who could even be better. So I think they're a team to watch. They're going to be interesting down the stretch, and maybe they could be the team that finally ends Georgia's winning streak, but I do think there's someone to watch. Mark Stoops does a good job.
14.5-point favored, so I just looked at some picks.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty good spread for a team in Georgia that is kind of just, they just kind of, maybe they're bored. I don't know.
I think they're somewhat bored, yeah. I think the hard part for Kentucky is how are they going to run the football as effectively with Ray Davis as they, like last week's example. That's not likely against the Georgia defense.
No.
So you're going to need, Devin Leary to have a much bigger game and whatnot. But, yeah, that's a team that's been good for, going on a while now. I mean, this has been, pretty consistent. But the 5-0 start, that's obviously pretty special.
Mm-hmm.
Can they finish it out strong enough? But, I mean, they've won, 10 games a couple of times in the past decade. They've been to multiple bowl games. Mark Stoops has done a really good job there. And they're not a team that you can just say is a pushover any given week. I mean, that's a team that you have to – be alert and be aware, and they can knock you off. But, yeah, I mean, it's Georgia, so I don't know how they're going to be able to – because Ray Davis isn't rushing for 200-plus yards, most likely. If he does, though, man alive, I will be first thing Monday's show talking about how wrong I was because that would be something else to behold. But, yeah it's going to be tough.
Number 4, will the SEC West winner have 2 losses? I keep thinking about this because I just don't – Alabama now seems like if they can, again, because they have Nick Saban, that they might be able to coach around these problems. I don't see A&M going through this thing unscathed. I just don't, especially with the backup quarterback. Max Johnson is a good backup quarterback to have, but he's still the backup quarterback. LSU is a team that defensively, Garrett's shaking his head. They're an absolute mess. But at any given moment, they can haul off and score 45 on you. So sometimes that defense won't matter as much.
If A&M wins at home against Alabama, and I know they have the rest of their schedule, but doesn't that put them in the driver's seat?
It absolutely does. But, again, this could be the SEC West doing a little Big 12 where they cannibalize each other a little bit.
That's true.
So that's what I'm wondering if – that's where it is because, look, Ole Miss has shown that it has problems. And really, you take Mississippi State and Auburn kind of out of this discussion, but it's really a 4-team race right now with LSU, Bama, A&M, and Ole Miss just having beaten LSU. So, yeah, there's a good shot. And when I say 2 losses, I mean 2 losses in conference because all these teams all have at least 1 loss at a conference so far.
What is A&M's crossover game? Is it
South Carolina?
South Carolina, okay.
For the last time that one – let's make the SEC. Let's make this a rivalry.
Is Alabama's Tennessee?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, all right.
So, yeah, because that would be the flip back of last of last year. So, and look, Tennessee's not really anything to be shaking in your boots about right now either. So
yeah, they're okay.
So I mean, I think there's a good shot that this comes out where the SEC West winner is maybe 9-3 or 10-2 overall,
and they're all 6-2, 2 or 3 at 6-2 in the conference.
Yeah.
Well, I believe that happened last year with LSU, did it not? 6-2 in the conference.
Yeah,
I believe it did, but it hadn't happened as far as the West goes, in a really long time that I can best tell. Maybe it was back in 07 LSU had 2 losses. The East, it's happened a couple of times. But, last year's LSU team was 6-2,
Wow.
But it has not happened very frequently, and this year does set up to be one of those where, it could very well work out that way, where they all just beat up on each other, absolutely.
Because Alabama never lost, or if they did, they lost maybe once.
Let's see.
So there you go.
7-1, 10-0. LSU was 8-0. Bama 8-0. Auburn 7-1. I mean, I could go on and on and on.
Yeah.
But the last time the Western champion had 2 losses, as best I could tell, was that 07 LSU team that beat Tennessee, who also was a 2-loss division team out of the East. So it's been a while.
Number 3, Bama might have fixed themselves. They might have. Like the way I've watched in the last couple of weeks, they might have fixed themselves enough to where they can coach around all this, because the defense is playing out of its mind right now. So if that continues, and we'll see, because they're playing an A&M offense that's pretty solid and has some seriously good weapons on the outside, then maybe number 2 doesn't happen, and Bama just rolls on and gets over their little, early season freak out and rolls 2. I don't think that's the case, because I think Jalen Milroe will have to throw more effectively to help them win some of these games, particularly LSU. Like I know that they'll be able to run the ball against LSU, but I do think that they're going to have to probably throw it more effectively against LSU when they play them. So, but still, if you look at what's going on in Alabama, I think before we kick dirt on Nick Saban, just let him figure it out, because he can figure it out pretty quickly.
Well, I mean, they're still the most talented team, arguably, in the country, no matter what their record was, and no matter how young or inexperienced anybody may be, especially at quarterback. So it's easier said than done, of course, but it's also easier for them to do than just about anybody. And I just think they're playing really good defense, and they're going to have a strong defense, and then, just hope that Milroe's able to guide them and make some plays here and there. But, I think that they've kind of realize their identity and what it's going to look like winning moving forward. And I think that that's what, is maybe how they've fixed themselves, just realizing who they are and what they're capable of doing and what they aren't and what they're not, probably best at doing. And so, they're going to play defense, and, just hope Milroe takes care of the football and makes some plays here and there. And, it's still Alabama at the end of the day. So for as much as people wanted to read last rites, because that's been a want for a lot of people for like 15 years now at this point. I'm not counting out Saban until it's all said and done, just because they lost to Texas. I mean, come on now.
They lost the turnover battle 2-0 when Milroe threw 2 deadly picks against the Horns. They won the turnover battle 2-1 against Ole Miss. I think it was 1-1 with whoever it was after that. They picked off 3 passes against Mississippi State. They're starting to have the disruptive plays.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the other thing. Nick Saban had the backbone and the confidence to play 2 terrible quarterbacks against USF and win that game so that he could send a message to the guy who's the most talented of the bunch. Yeah. And it worked.
Well,
I mean, so far, it's worked.
Yeah. No, it may have gotten him refocused and also stopped being selfish.
Yeah. I mean, that is, there you go, Nick Saban. Number 2, LSU's defense needs help. I will let Garrett comment on this, on what he thinks needs to happen.
I'm of the belief that, Pete Jenkins coming out of retirement isn't going to help much.
He's done that 5 or 6 times.
Yeah, it's been a while. I'm of the belief that Matt Rule and Baylor set LSU back firmly when Matt Rule went and took the Panthers job, and then Baylor took Aranda and dismantled our whole coaching staff. And this is where you're at. So I've been taken aback by all the Baylor fans who've complained about Dave Aranda and the lack of defensive excellence, because it's complete blasphemy and ignorant, in my opinion. But yeah, I would gladly like to have Dave Aranda back on the Bayou, but that's not going to happen. So this is where we're at.
There you go. I mean, Baylor's defense has had some warts. We know that, but I get what you're saying.
We know.
Hey, what the hell's happened to the guy? The
Harold Perkins?
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know.
They're playing with the wrong position.
Exactly.
I know that they did that earlier. Are they still doing that?
Yes, it's annoying.
By the way, just a trivia question. Remember when Joe Brady was like the hottest thing in coaching? Y'all even know where he is now?
He was with the Bills last year.
That was the last place I saw him.
Quarterback's coach for the Bills.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep.
Well, they got a pretty damn good quarterback
Yeah.
in Josh Allen.
And that's also Matt Rule's fault because he took Joe Brady
Exactly.
from LSU.
It
and
is.
took him to Carolina.
Yeah. Number 1. Uga's gettable. They're gettable. Now, will they get got? Who knows? But they're gettable. This team is not the Imperial death force that they were a year ago. They're still very good and one of the best teams in the country by far. But because, like we talked about, they're a little bit bored. They have a new quarterback. You don't lose, like 40 NFL guys off 2 years of a roster and then look the same, even though a year and a half from now, it's probably going to be at the same kind of look. But this is a younger team. They've got to kind of really come through this, but they're gettable. They're not rolling out and drilling people like they were. So they can be. I just don't know if they will be, because sometimes if you can get through those things like Auburn, then you just move on
Or
through
even
it.
South Carolina. They've trailed by double digits in the last 2 games at a halftime or during the first half. That's playing with fire.
Yeah, I mean, they are gettable, like you said. I mean, that was evidenced by last weekend. They were in a position to potentially lose that game. It's been weird. I was mentioning Ray Davis. Like, the odds of him running like he did last weekend against Florida are pretty slim. But, I mean, Georgia's run defense isn't like what you would expect, like the top level, top notch to be. Like, there is some room there to run a little bit potentially for Kentucky. Their pass defense has been really good though, and then on offense, I think that they're still trying to find their run game a little bit. Like, they had a string of like every position's a string of NFLers, but I think that's still a work in progress. So the running offense and running defense, I think, are 2 areas you could look where maybe they're not exposed, but they're a little bit vulnerable, and we'll see how Kentucky can maybe attack those areas, but they're still light years better than basically every other team in the country in many ways, if not always. And so, they're still tough to top, as was evidenced last weekend, but there's some team out there that can knock them off on the right Saturday or in the right moment.
All right, Paul, there you go. They're gettable. No one's gettable. They are gettable. Georgia. Board, we'll find out, because Kentucky is a team that doesn't make a lot of mistakes. They don't screw up.